Let's change this. Yeah, there's a lot of things. You can ask questions. I can try and explain specific things to you, Max Power, if you're still here. I had 3 viewers, now I have 2. I don't know if it's you still or it's a worker. I had a worker and then you came. Alright. I need to try on the dynamic numbering. It's too hard to track what's what. Even if it's sometimes inaccurate. Or I want to update the names first and then, because this one should be a Mark 3. Or maybe not. Advanced Fighter Mark 7. All designed with wind tunnel pioneers. Oh, I can even do it here. Scout plane. Basically Scout plane Mark 2. Nav. I really should switch to an advanced nav with non-strategic materials. It would require less aluminum. But so do I want to bother updating this? This is a legacy thing. I'm not going to produce any war transfer planes, so I'm not going to bother upgrading them. Scout planes and improved medium airframe is plenty. I didn't even give them level 4 engines just because cost. Yeah, I need a modernized nav. Alright, what would this actually look like? Probably drop tanks in slot 3. Otherwise, there's no overlap with anything else. Oh. I was still producing this because of aluminum savings. Range 877. These are actually shorter ranged. I kept meaning to... Oh, I was still producing improved nav, that's why. Maybe looks like I only have 1 production line of improved nav. Kept meaning to upgrade it and forgetting, or not doing it. Are these really Mark II if I didn't produce any of the Mark I? Not really. But it'll upgrade in the future. Did it save advanced nav? It did. So I've got a version that has strategic materials. Fall back on that. I can just straight update this. Aluminum is in critical shortage at this point. I can't afford, and this doesn't hurt most air defense is most irrelevant against naval strikes. It's mostly agility that matters for dodging naval anti-air. Unless I fight attack a force of carriers, at which point the carrier fighters will just disrupt the heck out of this with such low air defense. I did give it some armor plates out of acknowledgement of that issue. Proved now to have had 877 range, and it wasn't quite enough to cover the sea zone I need. So I need at least drop tanks. 937 would be enough. I could alternatively give them extra fuel tanks instead, or air defense. But whereas this is 41.4 agility, this is lighter, it's 41.9. War losses against naval anti-air, but higher against fighters. I guess fighters do happen. I'll just leave the drop tanks. Stick with the drop tanks. The range is just barely sufficient for my needs. Just barely. But just barely is good enough. Yep. This will have to do. I don't feel great about 11.7 air defense, but it can only get worse. And they don't counter air attacks often enough to be worth self-sewing fuel tanks. So they got a little bit of armor, probably on the front, or maybe the rear actually, against fighters around the engines. Probably in the rear side of the cockpit is where and around the fuel tanks, maybe. It's not great, but I can produce a lot more of them than if it didn't have non-strategic production resources. This would be a production penalty. And the extra losses to fighters are not nearly as important as the higher survivability. So the extra range from not having, what was I saying? Fighters, agility. Oh yeah, not nearly as important as being able to produce more of them. And, you know, quantity, since, I don't know, lose 7 to naval anti-air over time. 29.6 per frame, that's the cost. Improved nav is 30, so it's slightly cheaper and it requires less aluminum. And improved nav only had an agility of, well, they could have been upgraded. 37.2, so they're more survivable. Agility reductions to naval anti-air damage against a naval bomber cap out at 44.5 agility, which they're not going to reach even with the wind tunnel pioneers, but whatever. At least they'll have some. They dodge something like 75% of naval anti-air attacks at this agility rate. Whereas it caps out only 95% reduction. It's a really sharp cut at the end, if I remember. It's not linear. Or maybe it is linear. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't care to look it up right now. March 28th. I'll switch that over. Looks like a lot of things are going to be switched to March 28th. A few on March 26th. Lots of aircraft to flip over. I do want hardened frames. I do want longer range transports for dropping paratroopers over Shusik-Holstein. These might be enough in terms of the production cost is the same. This is faster, so it'll be slightly less vulnerable to enemy fighters. I don't expect Shusik-Holstein has many fighters, but these are still usable against the Americans. I'll be glad. So it's either improve transport planes now, or I start on a support company thing. Maybe paratrooper tech. No, I need to start on these soon enough. So the sooner I get them out, the sooner I upgrade my fighters again. Planes use to transport troops and paradrop. It doesn't even have flavor text, really. Okay, whatever. Working on increasing steel production, improving the effectiveness of my recon companies. Armored cars, which can be used both for light armored recon and as a cheap way to add breakthrough stat to motorized divisions instead of proper tanks, which tanks that can keep up with the motorized, they're either really expensive or they're light tanks, and it's a lot of tech. It was mostly going to produce medium tanks. Eventually, I'll be spending a lot more motorized, but I'm going to need a lot of synthetic refineries, and I'm going to need to presumably have more access to oil than currently, which is mostly limited by my ability to import it. The Romanians produce more than I can buy. Once I grab some of the German industry, I'll be able to import more oil. And there's actually a little oil produced right here in Hanover. My nation is highly militarized. More military factors in Civ. And with resource imports, I have almost nothing left for construction. So dockyards also require resources. Steel mainly is the most problematic resource. Shoot, I didn't create a strategic version of this stuff, did I? Non-strategic. Well, I can keep going like this a little longer, but I need to reduce aluminum imports soon. I already cut out aluminum from nav, where it's least harmful. Scout plans have been non-strategic from the start. Oh. That's right. I was gonna make a fighter bomber design. I was gonna make it from CAS. Or I could do it from fighters. It really depends what the secondary modules are. They're identical. Oops. Why was this marked obsolete? It's not. This is actually more advanced than the other one. These are actually the Mark 8 CAS. Slightly more advanced, but more expensive. They have dive brakes. Alright. The problem is I'm still sending fighters to the Soviets, and they don't know how to use fighter bombers correctly. They can use pure fighters, they can use pure CAS, they don't use max power, which are worth it. Unfortunately, with the way Paradox does things, all of them, they all have something important to the game that you won't realize what you're missing without it. They put just enough into the DLC that you want all of them and not a smidge more. It's really obnoxious, and some people disagree with me about that. If you don't want to buy the DLC, you should try the Road to 56. It's a mod, and it's built in a way that you don't really need the DLC in it. And it extends the tech tree in 1956, so you might not actually play the game to 56, but you can do stuff ahead of time. So you might run a 1956 tech in 1953 if you have a ahead of time penalty reduction that you saved for it. So I don't know, you might end the war in 54, 55, but techs that go beyond when you expect to end the game are actually important for beelining. And it gives focus trees to go a little longer. Some of them add some new focuses in it. Yeah, it's only a couple of DLC you need for the Road to 56. So if you're planning on playing without most DLC, I would get the Road to 56 and just get the ones they recommend, which is only like 3 of the DLC, and those are really critical ones. That mod's designed to work without most DLC, but the base game, you probably want all the DLC. I know it's super expensive. don't buy them at the base price. Go to isthereanydeal.com, set alerts for sales, and it'll notify you when there's a sale. I would set the thresholds pretty deep and only pick them up on sale. The deals are all worth it, but none of them are worth it. The price Paradox charges you want at the base price. You want to get them when they put it on sale. And they don't put all the sales on Steam. Some of them are on other sites. Green Man Gaming and stuff. Sometimes sales aren't from Paradox. It's the website to attract customers. They'll themselves reduce the cost, which means they pay Paradox the same amount to sell the game. But they have themselves taken a reduced profit margin. Occasionally they have sales on like Green Man Gaming and stuff. These are some of the, like, is there any deal? I would disable some of the fishier websites and only use the reputable secondary sellers, the ones that are actually, like, have officially licensed copies of the game. There are websites that sometimes sell stolen keys and you want to avoid those. But as I understand it, there are a couple websites. I think Green Man Gaming is the one that usually has the biggest sales, but they're very infrequent. Like once a year they'll have a sale that's really good on a Paradox DLC, and that's when I pick stuff up if they have it. There was another site, I'm trying to remember that also. There's like 2 or 3 sites that occasionally have better sales on Steam, and we usually wait for them. I keep telling him to go to other places, and he leaves the Twitch, probably to go to those websites. That's funny. Well, it's my own fault. Advanced cast, long range. Anyways, this is probably going to be, I keep putting off advanced because there'll eventually be I'll just call this, I need to start with trainers. No, actually I should start with the thing that I'm going to train him into, the reason being because it's actually closer to the original design than the trainers, which would be a little cheaper. Advanced fighter bomber. Oh, it's actually just doesn't have the R visible. Like fighter bomb. Alright, advanced fighter bomber. Mark 8. No, thank you, that's weird. It's not Mark 8. Except I made upgrades, I'll keep it. I did a save as new, but this didn't create a new airframe yet. There we go. Most important thing are the rocket rails. And the machine guns. Those are going to be on pretty much all my fighter bombers, so. And I'm going to need non-strategic resource materials usage. No question, I'll want that on all my fighter bombers. On Cass, 72.6 agility. Then I'll get like an additional 70% from doctrines and spirits. When on Cass missions only. Agility is what keeps him alive. Air defense helps, but it's mostly by avoiding getting shot in the first place. This gives air defense. This gives air defense on Cass. And the drop tanks are gonna have to go. The range is gonna stink if I get rid of them, even if I do a turret. Trainer version is gonna have armor plates and just be much shorter range. So there we go. 825 kilometer range. That's the penalty of doing a fighter bomber like this. The survivability is amazing. Even against supersonic fighters, they'll outnumber 3 to 1. They'll do fine. They'll even trade at IC 1-to-1 approximately, but I can't afford 1-to-1 losses with Americans. They can outproduce me 20-to-1, but they'll mostly just avoid getting hit. And when they do occasionally trade, I don't expect them to. Well, actually, that's a lot of air attack. They might. Won't be able to use them that often if the Americans have enough air detection. But low air detection will probably reduce the. They'll trade 1-to-1 when they trade, but most of the time they won't see the enemy and they won't be seen. Alright, here we go. That's the advanced fighter bomber. Call it Mark 9. And then trainer fighter bomber. Might want to give it a different model so I can tell it's a puny little trainer. Oh, this looks like a 2-seater. Since theoretically, most training aircraft are only for 2-seaters. When you're training a pilot, there can be an instructor in there with the main guy. Special forces, are they worth researching? Yes and no. You need the Special Forces doctrines to make them worthwhile. And while Mountaineers are arguably the best Special Forces doctrine, they use Army XP, which is by far the hardest to get. So, unless you're doing a ton of ground combat as a huge major like the Soviets or Americans, you probably can't afford the Army XP. The easiest Special Forces to get are either the paratroopers if you lend lease a lot of aircraft to other nations and you enter the war late, like I did, as Denmark here. Or Navy, if you have just a decent number of ships on ship exercises. So Marines are probably the best Special Forces to get the doctrine. They're the cheapest. The most expensive are the Mountaineers, but the Marines are also the least useful Special Forces. Are they good for researching though? Yes, but you have to do some kind of hijinky stuff. You get the Special Forces doctrines, you upgrade the techs, and then you don't use pure ones. They all play a little differently. Paratroopers have to be pure Special Forces because you can't drop normal infantry. But Marines, you mix like 3-to-1 for every 3 Marine battalions. You add a standard infantry, and that's so you can have more divisions in total. And because standard infantry have higher hit points. And if you have a lot of industry, you mix them with mechanized. And there's even an amphibious mechanized, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check. But those count as Marines, so you replace the Marines with the amphibious mechanized. But you also have some non-amphibious mechanized so that you can have more divisions in total. Unless you have a really, really, really high Special Forces cap, then you can just go pure amphibious mech. Or you could do amphibious mech alongside infantry, but then the division won't move as fast. You can also do much higher cut ratios for Marines that aren't meant to do naval invasions, not opposed naval invasions anyways, but are meant to do river crossings. So like 1-to-4, 1 Marine for every 4, or not 1-to-4, 1-to-3, 1/4 Marines. So if you have an infantry battalion, instead of 8 infantry, 6 infantry, 2 Marines, and then artillery, because you probably want a 6-2-1. 6 infantry, 2 Marines, 1 line artillery will have enough artillery ratio to use shock. They need at least 10% of their battalions to be line artillery to use shock tactic. And you still support artillery as well. And these are troops that would specialize in taking bridges when you're attacking with infantry on crossing rivers. Or you mix amphibious mechs in with your tank divisions, and then you also use amphibious tanks, and then you have tank divisions that can cross rivers easy. But they also use Special Forces cap, both amphibious tanks and amphibious mechanized. So amphibious mechanized are actually suffer fewer penalties for being amphibious than stats. So actually probably use amphibious tanks to normal mechanized. either way. Marines are very useful for crossing rivers and stuff, and they're the easiest branch to get. Paratroopers, though, are amazing for seizing undefended ground and victory points ahead of your main army, as long as you can relieve them before. If your main army is sufficiently strong to break through, which should have an easier time when the enemy supply lines are cut by paratroopers. And Mountaineers are just amazing, because a lot of the hardest areas to fight in are mountain or hills, and you can make them cold weather specialists if you're like invading the Soviet Union, or you can make you can give mountain artillery and rough terrain specialists, and you can use them to fight like certain key areas, like the Spanish-French border is very mountainous, Norway is very mountainous. Mountaineers, their main bonus is for fighting in rough terrain, where your standard troops are going to really struggle with the Alps, places like that. I mean, if you're doing Germany and you're invading the Soviets in the winter, you just want the Rangers winter specialists for the cold acclimatization gain, because you do not want to be fighting in deep snow, extreme cold without winter acclimatization, and most nations don't have time to wait 3 years for divisions to winter train the Alps. So anything that speeds up winter training is to your advantage. It already takes me over a year to train my guys in northern Finland. If you haven't noticed, I've been rotating them in and out of northern Finland. It takes something like a year to fully winter acclimatize the guys up there. Usually a whole winter, and then they come back. It would take multiple winters down to Denmark, though. Anyways, the trainer is just gonna it's about cost, because a lot of these things that add combat effectiveness are less worthwhile when a substantial number of aircraft will go down in training accidents before they ever see combat. I'm better off spending the ICs and things that will be given to experienced pilots. And the range matters less, again, because they won't be seeing as much combat. But they will on occasion. 600 kilometer range is enough to defend the Danish homeland just barely. When I get modern airframes, I'll have a little higher range, be able to do the same thing but with modern airframes. And they might not get 100%. Excuse me. Like, I'm pretty sure the airbase in Copenhagen won't cover southern Jutland, but with these, cost effectiveness. Actually, wasn't one of these, yeah, these were dive brakes. I could do that. 675 range, that's slightly better. But yeah, they're cheaper. It's not a big reduction cost, but this is a reduction cost. And over the main ones, and they still trade very well. They don't have the range of the other ones, but they're cheaper. That's basically the trade-off. I think they actually have the same air defense. Anyways. So I've got the trainer fighter bomber. Tell me I didn't just override the... I did, didn't I? Shoot. Scheiße. I accidentally overrode the fighter bombers that... It's probably fine. I can start producing these. Let's see. The original one was... I took this. I add non-strategic materials. Did I do extra fuel tanks? I might have. I'd have to check. And then I proceeded to overwrite it. I meant to save that, but I didn't hit save as new, and so it overwrote because I hadn't produced any. Shoot. Because it would look like... Actually, it's cheaper to produce off this. Kind of range and... No, I didn't do this. This would have been only 14 air defense. That would have been dumb. Pretty sure I instead kept drop tanks in the 3rd slot. That's what I did. Or no, I didn't even do drop tanks. I did and defense turrets. It's only 750 kilometer range. It's not a big increase. And self-fueling fuel tanks, that's what it was. I had the main ones were these. I'm pretty sure. 37 cost. It's at 30.22. Whatever, I'll probably just slowly produce the trainers. And when I get modern airframes, I'll go to war. It's going to take even longer. Or maybe I'll just wait for hardened airframes. That doesn't make sense on frames. Pretty much just throw away 2. Or... It's only 2 air XP. I really hate it that much. I can just cheat myself 2 air XP or just live with it. Either one is probably fine. I'm so upset about the loss of that. Keep doing stupid stuff like that. Alright, well. Boom. Okie dokie. So I produced a better nav, and I'm just gonna switch nav to nav. Fighter bomber. I'm gonna place these improved casts. You know what? I'm getting really impatient waiting for the next general, and it's stupid. I'll just give myself some command power and consider that to be an air XP to command power. This is barely worth it. It's mostly pure ego. And I'll just choose a Ram Brigadier to promote. This is one of the divisions. It's, yeah. Ivar Love and Bulk. Is he good? No. Oh, he's a flexible strategist. Alright, some of you hate me for this, but I'm playing as Denmark, trying to... And I took over after losing Syria. This is gonna be as slow as heck. Paratroopers are good for invading England. No. No, the British will hit you with so many infantry divisions these days that the paratroopers will be wiped. They're not for supporting naval invasions, which are slow. That's... I mean, can they help? Yes, but the paratroopers will mostly be a distraction. They'll get wiped. You run Marines Doctrine, because the hard part is going to be taking the naval, the bases. You, assuming that it's late enough in the game and you don't rush the UK really early, they're going to defend the coastlines. What you need are good Marines to get a beachhead. You can drop paratroopers, but I wouldn't take the paratroopers Doctrine. I would take Marines Doctrine tree, which naval XP is cheaper to get anyways. And then I would drop a few paratroopers on supply hubs if you find any that are lightly defended or undefended, and you'll find that out using recon planes or spies. And then I would mostly focus. You're not going to control the air against the UK. If you try to repeat the Battle of Britain, it's going to go the same way the historical one did as Germany. Now this is assuming you're talking about taking England as Germany. Everyone wants to play Germany for some stupid reason. And is it doable? Yeah. I mean, but why do you want to play the Nazis? I get it. I used to play Axis and Allies, and I would play Germany sometimes, but this game adds much more interesting possibilities. I would say that playing as Italy is much more interesting than as Germany. And, like, you can take, like, the anti-German thing. You can do all sorts of crazy alt history stuff. If you don't join the Axis as Italy, then you don't necessarily have to go with the Allies, and you let Germany get pwned. In fact, you can join the Allies. There's a focus Italy has to do that. You can eat Germany, and then you can later backstab the Allies when the timing is right. It's perfect. You, as a fascist nation, you can justify it in minors very quickly. And so you can go like, hey, New Guinea, you got a big navy, so you can invade over there. Hey, you're mine now. Hey, South American countries are mine now. Since the United States have joined the Allies, probably, if you're playing historical. They won't attack you over taking South American countries, so you can, as Italy and the Allies, you can eat up South America, the minors that exist in Asia Pacific region. You can, of course, have Ethiopia. You can potentially even, if you declare on it before Germany does, before they join the Allies, you may even be able to grab Belgium and the Belgium Congo and the Netherlands and the Dutch East Indies. As long as you time it right, so that you need to both be in the Allies now. UK has to be at war so they don't kick you from the faction, and you have to be in their wars. If you're not in a war alongside them, they'll just kick you and declare on you over this. You can eat up, annex half the world, and then you can turn on the UK. Like, why? And that's just one of the alt history things you can do. Who wants to play as the Germans? There's so much more interesting alt history possibilities in this game. And playing as Italy, fascist Italy, or communist Italy is some interesting stuff. Although you have to fight a civil war, so I wouldn't recommend for new players. So fascist Italy, playing as an aggressive Soviet Union. That's definitely not first game thing. Soviets are overwhelming. Playing as Sweden. The devs are from Sweden. Sweden gets some really interesting alt history stuff as a result. Playing as communist or fascist United States. The communists have to fight a civil war, but it's a pretty easy one once you learn the basics of the game. At least I think so. I do get very sweaty and try to min-max it so I don't lose as much manpower equipment, and I try to do things like maximize the Lend Lease I receive by having a lot of really under-equipped infantry. So nations, I turn off historical AIs, and then other communist nations send me Lend Lease. Or if I'm still democratic, other democratic nations, which is a lot more, especially historical. Communist America gets to, though, because they fight a civil war, they can go to war economy and be at war economy, which is the second highest mobilization level, way before they go and fight the Germans. If they are smart about how they manage it. And or the fascist US can invade their neighbors like Canada and stuff, but you're going to end up at war with the Allies. Then you're going to end up dividing the world with the Germans and then backstabbing them, basically, if you're going for world domination. I don't know, I don't like it because it's much more evil, and you still have to fight a civil war. It's actually harder, the fascist civil war. Instead of taking control of the north, where most industries, you take control of the south, which that kind of goes like the historical civil war did, except it's worse because you don't have California on your side or any of that, which is much more industrialized than it was in the historical U.S. Civil War. Plus, you're role-playing the bad guys, and with the U.S. going fascist these days, I don't like that role-play a ton. But, Communist United States, Communist Germany actually has some really interesting stuff, I'll admit, but it doesn't play anything like fascist Germany. You're actually really weak, and you have to, after your Civil War, and you have to avoid wars with other countries. The Germans are so powerful not just because of their industry, but because they can ally with so many other countries in historical, like Hungary and Romania, and like just annex stuff without wars. It's not just the Civil War weakens them; they don't have allies if they flip communist. You need naval. You're not going to take the UK with paratroopers, except with cheesy, exploity stuff that the devs have worked hard to fix. You're not going to capitulate the UK with paratroopers alone. You need to protect your supply lines. Like, even if you mainly drop paratroopers, you would need to take ports using paratroopers, which is really hard. Unless they're very lightly defended, and then you would need to send supply overseas, and then you would have to defend it against convoy raiding, which the AI has gotten better at doing since early versions. The Reddit and stuff is full of these old posts. Just look at the year. It'll be like 2023, 2021, back before the AI, the UK has only, in the last year or so, been good at defending its home island. There used to be paratrooper cheese to take the UK, and it used to work really well. Not anymore. You have to protect your supply lines. Can you do it? Yes, you can still do it. If you have massive air superiority, which you need to drop the paratroopers in the first place, you're better off gaining naval superiority. Is that going to be hard? Yes. Rushing the UK is no longer an easy thing, but it's going to be quicker to gain naval superiority than it's going to be to gain air superiority over the British home islands. They have radar stations. They have anti-air. And they're smart enough not to just, if they start to lose a lot of fighters, they'll switch their fighters to intercept missions, which won't launch until they see your bombers. You have to launch some kind of bombing mission to lure out their fighters. If you don't, they'll just sit and, like, you won't do anything. You could just fly your fighters over. And while they build more fighters until they feel confident engaging again. And if you do paratroopers and you haven't shot down half the Royal Air Force, your paratroopers are going to be slaughtered before they even land. You have to win the air war over UK, which is much harder than win the sea war in the North Sea. And then you don't invade right across the English Channel necessarily. You invade somewhere in northern Scotland or something, where the UK is less likely to expect it. Maybe you take Iceland first or something. I don't play Germany, so I don't do the sweaty, let's take the UK down. It's not it's a tough nut to crack, and it's not one I'm interested in. I messed with it once as non-aligned Germany, and I'm like, no, I don't want to ever do that again. It was hard. And it wasn't actually, the AI got really focused on defending against me, and then Italy went and did a naval landing in Wales, and then that was the bridgehead. It was actually Italian troops that marched into London, not mine. The UK is a tough nut to crack. And then the Italian troops, they took the Isle of Man as a staging ground first, and they got nuked several times. This was a really long war. This is like 1947. They got nuked, I think, twice or 3 times before they actually made the bridgehead in Wales, which I did not want to stack troops there because they had no supply and they were getting nuked. But somehow the AI just like, okay, we'll throw away 50,000 men, 50,000 men, 50,000 men, and each time they got nuked, because they had like they had 100,000 men stacked there, and they lost 50,000 each time they got nuked. And then they just replaced the losses, and then they finally launched a naval invasion, and they succeeded. I was amazed. My jaw dropped. Alright, anyways. Time for the advanced fighter bombers. I hate it. I hate that I threw away some air XP, but I did just give myself some command power to compensate. And honestly, the air XP is probably worth more, even with the ridiculous rate I'm getting it. This general hiring stuff is nonsense. It's a waste of my time. But I'm doing it because I want to. For roleplay reasons. I'm probably biased partly in this direction because I was once an ROTC and Army ROTC in the United States, and I strongly resented the complete incompetence I saw in some of the Mark 10. Well, I guess it gives me an idea of how advanced it is. I saw ridiculous incompetence in a lot of the ROTC people, and even people who had made it through ROTC, like some of them would come back, and I'm like, you're an idiot, and you're in charge of people's lives. And these weren't even, I mean, these are lieutenants. Not every lieutenant makes it to captain. Not every captain makes it to major. But the U.S. military has terrible leadership. It's not well trained at all, except for the West Point graduates. They're actually pretty good, but your run-of-the-mill. Oh, come on, I saved that as duplicate. Oh, there we go, there's a trainer. I'm like, this is why I used a different icon. There we go. The advanced fighter bomber and the trainer fighter bomber. Maybe I should use something other than what my cast uses, though. This is the jet aircraft symbol. I usually use something like this for nav. What looks like a lean, mean... I can't use the P51 or whatever. There's like a thing that looks like P51. Only the Americans can use it. I noticed that when I was like, oh, this is actually mostly used by an American A series. Oh, like A10s. Yeah, this is perfect. The advanced fighter bomber. Is it flimsy? Sort of. Is it hard to... It's not strategic materials. It's not even armored. Is it hard to shoot down? Yes. It's got a rear gunner. It's got dive brakes instead of armor plating. 23.4 air defenses. It looks like an A10, but an A10 actually has armor plates. If this was an A10, it'd probably be more like this. And it doesn't have dive brakes, so it's actually more like this. It does have A series fighters and assault have armor plates and self-filling fuel tanks. And they do have strategic materials, and they also use jet engines. They're not advanced, they're like a modern airframe. So they have higher range than this. But they use heavy machine guns and rockets, so it's actually the right weaponry. So there's a real class of fighter bomber that looks something like these in terms of loadout. Something. But the tail gunner really helps make him harder to shoot down. The A-series fighter bombers in the US are meant to operate in what's known as a sanitized air environment, so when all the enemy fighters have been shot down, they're not very agile, whereas these things are actually very agile. Nukes don't reduce the manpower pool. Nukes reduce the manpower divisions that are in the province where the nuke lands. So if the Isle of Man here, this little thing, this is where the Italians staged. If there are 20 divisions in the Isle of Man, and the Americans nuke it, that will eliminate half the manpower for all 20 of those divisions. You can either leave them and they'll replace with green recruits, or you could consolidate them down to 10 divisions. So, Isle of Man, the British made the mistake of not defending it. This is back before the AI got better about defending their ports. This is years and years ago, like 7 years ago, I want to say. Maybe not 7, 5. It was a long time ago. But of course, it's a one-province island, which means it's really hard to take because any landing is going to be opposed. So the British couldn't retake it, so they just kept nuking it. Nukes have always wiped out half the manpower of the division in the province that gets nuked. Now they had a fallout penalty to the state as well, which is a new thing, but they have always wiped out half the strength, which is both equipment and manpower. Nukes do not kill civilians. They do not kill recruitable population that has not been entered into training. They do not affect divisions in training, but they do affect on-map divisions in the province, and only in the province. So if they nuke a dense, these guys lose half their strength. These guys, just one province south, unaffected. But it does weaken those divisions, so you can use it if the enemy front is just impenetrable. You nuke the province that you want to make a breakthrough, and then you immediately attack before they can replace the losses or pull in new divisions.